welcome to the Following Films podcast. I'm Chris Maynard, your host. Today I'm joined by the stars of Life and Beth, Amy Schumer and Michael Cera. As Beth and John's relationship grows more serious, Beth begins to examine the possibilities of marriage and having a family as she and John seek answers for their communication problems. Is Beth's traumatic history with men and people she trusted from her youth destined to repeat itself? And what is triggering her fears? Beth does her best to keep her relationships alive while struggling to support friends and family who are all facing their own problems while entering their fourth decade. But before my conversation with Amy and Michael, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Bookman's, an independent bookstore that believes in the magic of storytelling and the cinematic arts. If you're looking to expand your collection of films, music, or books, visit your nearest Bookman's and discover something truly wonderful. If you haven't already, please follow the Following Films podcast on Spotify to show your support. This will help us to continue to bring you in-depth conversations with the talented individuals who shape the world of cinema. Quick programming note on this one, the audio on my end is not great. I was on a work trip when I recorded this interview. I did it during my lunch break, and I brought my microphone but forgot to bring the USB cable, so I'm just using the onboard mic that comes with my laptop. It's not great. I think it's listenable, but that's why there's such an imbalance between the audio quality on Amy and Michael's end and my end. So just something to acknowledge, and I think the episode's totally fine, listenable, but just so you know. Also, this is something where in this episode, I end up doing a lot more of the talking than I would have liked to have, but we end up talking quite a bit about autism, and this is a subject matter that's deeply personal to me. Anybody who's been listening to the show for a long time knows that this is something that means a lot to me. So it's a subject that comes up in Life and Beth Season 2, and something that I was just really excited to talk about because I was moved by this season in just a profound way. I absolutely adore this show, and Season 2 is even better than the first season. Life and Beth is currently available on Hulu. I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks. Thank you both so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
I don't even know how to start this because I was so deeply moved by this show in a way that I have a son who's 8 years old and he's autistic, and there's this, I'm literally about to start crying right now.
I'm going to cry.
And so it's this thing,
guys.
Your number one concern as a parent is that your kids are just going to be okay. That's it. And so you're constantly looking for these benchmarks, for examples, and for stories and things, just any guideposts that the world will see this beauty that I see. And this is one of those things that I'm so thankful for the show. I know that's not what this is about.
Yes, it is. Okay. That is what this is about. And thank you for saying that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And
is that your only child?
I have two children. So I have a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Oh,
and an 8-year-old.
So,
wow.
One is neurotypical, one's neurodivergent. And so it's one of those things where you have to be cognizant of that all the time because the divergent child can suck all the oxygen out of the room. And so it's just something that it's to be aware of, but it's taught me so much compassion and empathy. And I am so much more a better person for having known both my children. And it's just, sorry, I didn't really have much.
That's great.
This is so incredible to hear.
You should stop there.
No, I mean, really, please don't apologize because this is like very meaningful, very, very meaningful. Yeah, I know to both of us and definitely to me. So thank you for sharing that. Well, and that is a huge goal. So,
and it's presented with normalcy. It's presented with the mundane bullshit that comes along with just a relationship, and that's all I want. Right, because that's the stuff I love. It's so much things about infatuation, but for me and my wife, the real meat of our story is in like the last 5 years. That's where it gets really interesting, and I see that trajectory here, and I really appreciate it with this.
Wow, that's amazing.
This is the greatest. I want all of this. I'm gonna I'm gonna frame this into this somehow to put this. Wow, but exactly, like because you just keep learning about yourself and your own trauma and. And I think when we were just talking, we realized like we don't even after that episode. I don't think we even mention autism again because it's just a part of who he is. Like everything's a part of a whole life and a whole person, and it's not. And so being a part of helping destigmatize it when we still have so far to go is a huge goal, and also it's very brave of my husband for being one of such a small group of people who has been open about it. And so I'm really proud of him, and I'm proud of you.
Well, it's the I think that there's a lot of people like me where our voices are heard frequently because it's parents that are talking out. We need to listen more to people like your husband, and we need the self advocacy. We need people that are empowered to speak up for themselves. And my 8-year-old, he'll tell you within 30 seconds, hi, my name's Jacob, I'm autistic, and I read at a 3rd grade level, even though I'm in 2nd grade. It's just immediately how he responds to the world.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering about like normalizing this and talking about it in a way. And I'm so glad it's not hammered over your head the whole time, because that would have been after school TV special. And I'm so glad you approach this way.
Right. And we also, showing, because it's a whole spectrum. It's not just this one part. And I think often the either portrayals or the actual people we see are sort of lower functioning or just this was a spot on the spectrum that was really, really essential to us to show. And it just doesn't define who you are. Yeah.
Well, it's distilled into this beautiful idea that you come around to, that my brain just works a little bit differently, that you can see that. And it's something that it's so, Michael, that moment, it's something that I saw in my son when he was in preschool, where he started to become self-aware of that. And it's so beautifully captured in that. And just thank you for giving the depth of humanity to this relationship and to this character. I think it's incredibly important.
Well, I guess, your son is like very fortunate to have you as a parent and be surrounded by love. And I feel the same about this character. It's like that kind of support is really what we all need. And I understand that you learn that as a parent too. And, as you've been learning like that's just kind of what your kid needs, no matter what's going on, is your support. And you just, show them you love them and be there with them and along for the ride with them. But that's kind of what I love about the way that this is explored in this show, is that he learns about it because of being loved and being recognized very clearly and with love, and which I know is kind of reflective of your experience with Chris. And I love that way in to this exploration and this revelation that John has.
And it continues like this. My knowledge about it and his, it's like, and ASD, the word disorder, and it's like I have mixed feelings about that, because I'm telling you, like, so many times I realize that his way of thinking is really so much more on, and like that, like we're the problem,
It's so
it's
true.
like, and his relationship to different parts of the world, it's like. I feel like I'm the one with the disorder.
Well, it's difference. It's not disorder. That's all it is. It's not something
that's what it should be.
And it's the idea of functionality and, is it high, low? It's just get rid of all that language, because it does matter. And I think that's where some of that stigma and scapegoating comes around. And I know we're out of time, and I really feel like I didn't even scratch the surface with talking.
Well, we'd if it's okay with you, we'd like another 4 minutes.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I would love to.
Thank you.
Because this is something where the humor in the show is something that's so important, and it makes something like this in this couple, because when dealing with stories like this, oftentimes we forget to tell the honest nature of it, which is just you laugh in the face of adversity, and your characters actually laugh at each other when they're funny, and that's something you don't see in a lot of shows like this, where they're literally being funny and they recognize that in the moment, whether it's like a sideways glance or something like that, but you actually acknowledge humor, which is something that a lot of comedies don't do.
This episode of the Following Films podcast is brought to you by Bookman's. So today I went into Bookman's and decided to try to find a film by Michael Mann. I went over to the Blu-ray section and saw copies of several films I already own, and then I found it, Black Hat. This is one I haven't seen in quite a while since it came out, and I figured maybe it was time for a reassessment of this much maligned film. So Black Hat is a cyber crime thriller directed by Michael Mann that delves into the world of cybercrime, hacking, and international intrigue. While it promises to be a gripping exploration of the dangers lurking in the digital age, the execution falls short of expectations. The film follows convicted hacker played by Chris Hemsworth, who's temporarily released from prison to help the American and Chinese authorities track down a criminal network that's responsible for a series of major attacks. As the hunt takes them across the globe, Hemsworth's character must navigate the murky waters of the criminal underworld while grappling with his own demons. One of the film's major shortcomings is its lack of technical accuracy and realism. While it attempts to portray the world of hacking authentically, it often falls into cliches and inaccuracies that ultimately undermine the credibility of the story. So the hacking sequences are exaggerated and unrealistic, relying more on flashy visuals than genuine technical expertise. And this is coming from an absolute layman. I am not somebody who knows anything about hacking, and yet I can see some of the things that just flat out aren't true in this film. And that particular disconnect may disappoint viewers familiar with the subject matter or looking for a more grounded portrayal of cybercrime. So despite these flaws, though, Black Hat does have its moments. Michael Mann's signature style is evident in the film's beautiful, sleek cinematography and the signature action sequences, and the international setting adds depth to the narrative. It highlights the global nature of cyber threats and the challenges of international cooperation. Chris Hemsworth delivers a solid performance as Hathaway, bringing the character a sense of depth who's grappling for redemption. And the supporting cast includes, I had no idea, I'd completely forgotten this, but Viola Davis, who's really great in the film and adds a lot to the film. But ultimately, Black Hat falls short of its potential. While it offers a glimpse into the world of cybercrime and espionage, its lack of technical accuracy and reliance on cliches detracts from the overall experience. And despite its flaws, fans of Michael Mann's work or of the cyber thriller genre, I guess if you're a huge Johnny Mnemonic fan and you're looking for some more cyber thriller, you could do worse than Black Hat. However, for those seeking a more realistic, nuanced exploration of hacking and cybersecurity, this might leave you wanting more, and I'm not sure I can recommend this one. But despite that, this gave me the chance to check out a film that I've been meaning to reevaluate, because I keep hearing that Black Hat is an underrated film, and maybe I'll give it another 10 years, follow back up with this one, and see if it does end up coming around for me. But remember, Bookmans, they have your cool covered. Hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks.
Yeah, we play. It's like, I think the way that a lot of comedies are written, it's like, it's fun to stop and look at how humor actually is in your life and how you joke with your friends. And because I think the grossest thing that you can possibly have to do on camera is if it tells you to laugh.
Oh, it's hard.
It's like there's something so violating.
When people are very good at it, if you've seen someone laugh on camera and it looks really good, that's like a brilliant actor.
Yeah, because it's just,
there's a few moments that you see that sometimes. It's like, it's very powerful when you see someone laughing well.
Right. Yeah. And just, I don't know, just it's been fun to, as a writer, just pay more attention to how we really actually interact and play together. Well,
and that for me is like one of the biggest appeals of this show in general, is just the tone, the tone of it that Amy found and with the writers, and right off the bat, it was kind of baked into what I first read. And I love that, and that's obviously like when you go and make a new show, it's going to have its own language. It's kind of like we're all going to find it together. And that's what's like very appealing as an actor, is finding a new tone and what's the voice of this show. And I love where it's landed.
Well, and it's something that we need as an audience. I watch a lot of things for this job. I end up consuming a lot of media. Rarely do I go back to watch something again, but this is something that I'm away from my family this week, and I'm going to be back tomorrow. And I'm actually going to go back and rewatch this with my wife, because it's something that I want to share with her. And
that's great.
And this is something that I think warrants that, because this is something that just, it goes down so easily. And it's something that just so, I don't know. It's the stakes are so appropriate. It's nice to get my head around something like this. So I really did enjoy this, and you've made a hell of a show. And I don't know why this isn't the biggest thing on streaming right now. I don't get that. I think this should be the show that everybody is talking about, to me personally. And I'm not just blowing smoke because you're here right now. I am so profoundly moved by this thing.
Thank you for saying that. We want to change the name of the show to Only Murders in the Life and Beth.
You have to experiment.
Oh, and just one other thing about autism, like,
yes, please.
It's like it's not this. Everyone has a different experience, and I don't know what it would be like to be with someone like extremely low functioning, but in finding out, it's not this thing. It's not always this thing to be like weeping over, like it's bad news or something. It's something to celebrate, and I think that it can. Some people can feel that it is harmful to diagnose something like this. I don't feel that way, but because you just don't want some word to define who you are, and it doesn't. And so I think our society, like, we all just need to do a better job and explain that to our children, like that this is just a person, and that's one of their characteristics, but it's not everything.
It's a framework to start with, to understanding the people that you're sitting across from. If you're going through postpartum, if you have depression, if you have anxiety, it's a thing that makes your behavior slightly different than what people are typically used to. And if you give them a framework that says, look, this is the way that my mind works, it's a little bit different. So when I process things, it might look a little bit different than yours.
Right.
And it's just that acceptance of it. For the best thing we did was get that diagnosis for my son, because we just wanted to make sure that we had every resource available to him. And when you're inside your own mind, having that framework is so helpful, because we all feel isolated and different and disconnected from the world around us. And when you have something that helps you understand that, you find a whole community and world that makes it easier to understand.
Yeah.
And then, it's like there's no reason to feel any, like, that's why it's like people have shame attached to it. And it's like, if you can get rid of that, and it's just about other people's fear of doing a good job. So, if you can just keep that in perspective, it's everything.
I think from a parental point of view, there's a little bit of a thing that we need to be honest about, that most people, they kind of hide behind. There's to some degree a grieving process where you're saying, okay, my life's kid is going to be different than I imagine. Their life is going to be different than what I envisioned for them. Those unfair fantasies that you put on your child when they're in utero, these things that you're thinking of. And so you're just learning there's this story that autistic parents share with each other. And it's this long poem that basically boils down to, you planned out this vacation for years. You were going to go to France or whatever it was. And so you learned the language, you learned the food, you learned where you were going to walk along, this river and do all these beautiful, wonderful things. But then you get on the plane and you land in Holland. And so you're disappointed, but then you realize there's windmills there, and there's all this beauty and Rembrandt. Yeah. And so it's just finding your way to the Rembrandts and to the windmills.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Great. I love it. Chris,
well, I know we're way over time, but thank you both. So no.
Pleasure.
I really did love this, and thank you for taking the time today. This was great. So
thank you so much.
Thank you for all that. Great speaking with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You as well. Thank you.
Time enough to figure you out. Time enough to write this down. Wish me luck, give me hope. So what witchcraft.